咁但係我相信過去2星期咧，大家都好忙碌㗎啦，因為咧都係投入咗東京奧運嗰個氣氛睇咗好多嘅奧運嘅賽事嚇。我今日亦都會就住特區政府進一步支援體育發展咧，係有一啲公佈，所以請咗徐英偉局長一齊出席。不過先等我就住2件事咧做個簡單嘅交代。第一咧就係抗疫。自從上個星期1，我公佈咗我哋要盡快為香港建立抗疫嘅雙屏障，即係話一方面咧就繼續堅守外防輸入，做到滴水不漏；另一方面咧要盡快提升疫苗接種率。我哋特別喺疫苗接種率嘅做法嗰度咧，就提出咗一個必須要求某一啲嘅群體係接種疫苗。否則佢哋係需要自費定期接受病毒檢測。咁我好高興咧睇到咧有唔少嘅企業機構、大學亦都係響應我哋呢個做法，就住佢哋自己自身嘅群體咧係採取同一樣嘅措施，希望能夠提升嗰個疫苗嘅接種率。而特區政府喺過去1個禮拜咧，亦都係公布咗幾項係為市民提供更加大便利可以接種疫苗嘅措施。第一就係首次咧，我哋喺以外展嘅形式係一啲商場設立臨時接種疫苗嘅櫃位，咁所以市民咧係無需要預約咧，可以喺呢啲臨時嘅櫃位裏邊咧係安排接種疫苗。第二，由聽日開始喺20多
for vaccination, and starting from today, in over 20 community vaccination centers, walk-in quotas would be available. And starting from tomorrow, the eligibility criterion will be extended to those above the age of 60. Another measure is that we'll be extending the operation of community vaccination centers to the end of October by 1 month. In other words, if you want to get vaccinated and get the first shot by the end of September, you can make an advance booking and then come back by the end of October for the second shot. On preventing importation of cases, we continue to uphold rigorous measures. Last night, we clarified rumors immediately in relation to comments made in the community about our new approach, and we've also made immediate adjustments to certain measures. For example, for Hong Kong residents coming back from Macau and outside Guangdong province via return to Hong Kong, the arrangement has been suspended, and we've also adopted a 3-tier risk level approach, and that all passengers before boarding the flight must show proof of a negative PCR nucleic test, and on arrival at the airport, they will be subject to a test and hold arrangement. This is an important element in the anti-epidemic barrier, and all arrivals must be subject to a quarantine spanning 7 to 21 days. And after leaving the hotels, they would also be required to get tested more frequently. However, experience around the world is telling us that nothing is foolproof because of the strength of the Delta mutant strain. That means it is all the more important to build the anti-epidemic barrier in Hong Kong now. The 4th wave of the local epidemic has come to an end, and we have set up a barrier to prevent importation of cases, and so far there hasn't been any major outbreak in the community. That is why we must make good use of this window period, because in the event of a major outbreak, we'll be resorting to universal testing again, as you've seen recently in Macau. And resources will be deployed such a way that extensive vaccination will not be possible. That is why we must push ahead with vaccination in the community. Otherwise, when the fifth wave arrives and when there is outbreak in the community, there is no way we can allow vaccination for all. As of last night, 3.5 to 87 million of the population received the first shot, accounting for 51.9% of the population. This shows that improvement is still needed, and that is why we hope to extend the arrangement requiring certain groups in the population to get tested with a fee to other groups of the population. Now, the next thing I'd like to report is about election. Since March this year, the National People's Congress endorsed the NPCSC's amendment exercise of Annex 2 to the Basic Law. And back then I said that I needed to explain to the public about the justification of improving the electoral system. And the second aspect is to go ahead with local legislation, and I'm happy to see that this has been done. The next task is to hold 3 general elections and to make sure that these elections be held in a fair and impartial manner. The first major election is the general election of the election committee subsectors, comprising 1,500 seats. The nomination period began on the 6th of August, and it will close on the 12th of August. That is Thursday. As of last night, the Registration Election Office received 885 nomination forms, involving 35 prescribed nomination forms and 850 nomination forms relating to candidates. For seats requiring 156 nominations, 967 seats. These are what the forms are related to. So the response has been keen. The next step is for the Candidate Eligibility Review Committee to vet the nomination forms and check the eligibility of candidates. In other words, whether they bear allegiance to the Hong Kong SAR and uphold the Basic Law. And I'm sure that under the leadership of the Chief Secretary for Administration, the Candidate Eligibility Review Committee will be pressing ahead with its task. The schedule is tight because by 26th of August, the committee is required to vet the eligibility of all candidates. So once again, I appeal to aspirants of the election that if you want to become a member of the election committee, please spare no effort in securing nominations and take part in the election. Under the leadership of the Electoral Affairs Commission, the REO will also make an all-out effort. Because of fresh candidates, the ICAC will also be devising the anti-corruption guidelines, and we will spare no effort in organizing the 3 elections in order to meet the objective. Now, the main topic today is sports. During the 17 days of the 2020 Tokyo Olympic Games, I would say that Hong Kong people have been entirely focused, and we were all delighted to see the 46 elite athletes taking part in the Olympic Games, and we deeply admire their contribution and their effort. And I am sure that our young people will fall in love with sports because of them. And I'd say that the Olympic haul for Hong Kong is unprecedented. We snatched 1 gold medal, 2 silver, and 3 bronze medals. It shows that our elite athletes are able to compete in international games, and we should all be proud of our athletes. Altogether, there were only 400 hours of Olympic Games during the 17 days games. But because of the broadcasting rights we secured, the different stations were able to air the games for a total of 2,000 hours. In other words, we were able to watch various games. Now, the Tokyo Olympic Games closed on Sunday, and I hope that despite that, our passion for sports will continue. Our athletes are at the moment undergoing quarantine, but very soon they will be taking part in China's national games in Shanxi, and I hope that I could attend in person to cheer for them. And many people around the world are looking forward to Winter Olympics in 2020. This will take place in Beijing, and we also have the Asian Games in Hangzhou in September, and also the next Olympic Games in Paris in 2024. Hong Kong people will support sports development in Hong Kong and will be willing to put in resources. This is, of course, the government's responsibility of making suitable investments. However, we didn't win medals by chance. Of course, credit should go to the athletes' hard work, the support of their families, and also the Hong Kong Sports Institute. However, sports developments in Hong Kong over the past decade have been such that we're able to meet the three objectives of elite sports development and promoting sports in the community, etc. And we've invested $60 billion in sports, and in 2017-18, the expenditure in sports was $520 million. In 2021-22, the expenditure has gone up by 42%, amounting to $737 million. In Hong Kong Sports Institute, we have 1,300 athletes. 500 of them are full-time athletes. In 2006, when I was Permanent Secretary for Home Affairs, I was in charge of sports, and there were few full-time athletes. With keen competition in the international arena, in order to excel, it's very difficult to only be an athlete part-time. I'm going to announce a number of measures to support sports development. First of all, we will expedite the construction of the new facilities building of the Hong Kong Sports Institute. As you can see on the screen, the block in white is the new facilities building in the Hong Kong Sports Institute in Sha Tin. The net gross floor area, in addition, is 9,000 square meters, providing facilities for new types of training. I'm going to spare the details now. The details will be provided later on. But for fencing enthusiasts, you should know that there will be a venue for fencing, that is a fencing stadium. And the new facilities building will house it. The other part is Sports Science Center and Sports Medical Center, which will provide additional accommodation facilities for our athletes. During my visit, I understand that a day center will be provided. Well, athletes will need to go home, but if they want to take a break for 2 or 3 hours, the day center can provide such a place for them. And after visiting the facilities in Hong Kong Sports Institute, I also reviewed the overall workflow of the project, including the pre-construction workflow, and we believe that we could be advancing the commissioning of the new facilities building by 2 years. This is also the aspiration of the chair, Mr. Lam Tai-Fai. we'd hope that the new facilities building can be commissioned before 2024 Olympic Games in Paris. Now, our view at the moment, and of course this is in no way an undertaking, that we could complete the construction of the new facilities building in June 2024. And in order to meet this objective, the Home Affairs Bureau will be applying for funding with the Finance Committee before the prorogation in end October. The funding amount would be $990 million in MOD prices. In the past decade, we devoted $1.8 billion in the new facilities and expansion of the Hong Kong Sports Institute. We also invested $1.1 billion in constructing the velodrome in Tseung Kwan O, and this will be the latest sports-related mega project. The second point is that the Hong Kong government will be co-funding a booster fund with the Hong Kong Jockey Club Charities Trust. By booster fund, we seek to enhance their capabilities, because we see that there is still room to establish a booster fund to further enhance the athletes' capabilities. And the booster fund will apply to sports science, sports medicine, and for new and state-of-the-art facilities to be procured by the HKSAR, so that athletes will be better prepared for the upcoming international games in the next 3 years, including Asian Games in Hangzhou 2024 and the Paris Olympic Games 2024, and also other international games. The booster fund will start with $300 million, and in other words, each party will fork out $150 million, and the fund would apply to both able-bodied athletes as well as disabled athletes. And I would appeal to universities with teams undertaking research on artificial intelligence, big data, etc., to take part in the sports-related projects. So perhaps we can engage coaches and research teams and see how, with the booster fund, we can help enhance the capability of athletes. I'd like to thank the Hong Kong Jockey Club, because for so many years it has been the pillar of sports development. The Hong Kong Sports Institute was called the Jubilee Center, and back then the Hong Kong Jockey Club solely funded its operation. The Hong Kong Jockey Club has always been generous with its resources, and today I rang the chair, and they immediately agreed to put in $150 million to set up the booster fund. The third part is that if we want sports development to be sustainable, we need to start with sports development in schools as well. As you know, we do have a very active federation of sports in schools, and they are very active in terms of scouting sports talents. And I do believe that Mr. Chang Ka-long and Ms. Siobhan Ho-yi were already very active when they were studying. So perhaps we could also enlist the help of the Hong Kong Schools Sports Federation and support them in organizing more events. Once the Kai-Tak Sports Complex is commissioned in 2023, more venues will be available for use by schools. The fourth measure is that we need to look after the academic pursuits of local athletes, as they go full-time so that they can have a dual-track development. So for the 8 UGC-funded universities, I would appeal to them to allow for flexible class arrangements. Many universities are supportive, and at the moment we have 170 active athletes studying in the 8 universities. And that is why the presidents and chancellors of universities are also very active when the athletes won medals. The Hong Kong's elite Athletes Development Fund was set up in 1996 when Ms. Li Lai Shan won the first gold medal, and continued support will be provided to reassure parents to allow their children with talents to join the sports sector. The last measure is that with the commissioning of the Kai-Tak Sports Complex in 2023, and with the enthusiasm shown by Hong Kong people in sports, I believe that apart from coaches and referees, we can further develop sports into a full-fledged industry. That means we need sports management, administration, and the holding of major international sports events. I will be asking the Secretary to chair a steering committee to explore the development of sports as an industry in Hong Kong and the manpower projections. The report will be submitted in due course. In terms of the 3 objectives of sports development in Hong Kong, we have built a good foundation. It's time for us to continue to develop elite sports development and to develop a sports industry. And I would encourage members of the public to support sports as well. The floor is now open. Please introduce yourself and the media organization before you speak. This journalist in stripes.
Good morning, Mrs. Lam. I'm from Hong Kong 01. Now, the city is enthralled by the Olympic Games.